Arif walked slowly through the empty street, holding a small piece of dry bread in his hand. The night was cold and quiet, and the wind made a soft whistling sound between the broken buildings. His clothes were old and thin, and his face showed the tired life he lived every day. He had worked all day, but this bread was the only food he could afford. The streetlights flickered above him, and shadows moved strangely on the ground. Arif looked around carefully, because this part of the city was not safe at night. But hunger was stronger than fear, and he just wanted to go home and eat in peace. As he walked past a pile of trash bins, he suddenly heard something. A soft sound like crying, but not like a human voice. He stopped walking, his heart beating a little faster. He listened again, and the sound came back, weak and full of pain. Arif felt fear rise inside him. This was not normal. He slowly turned his head toward the dark corner behind the bins. For a moment, he thought about walking away. But something about that sound felt different. He took a deep breath and stepped closer. The smell of garbage filled the air, but he ignored it. The crying became clearer now, small and broken. When he reached the corner, he froze. There, hiding behind the trash, were 3 small figures. They were not human. Their skin had a soft glow, pale blue and silver. Their eyes were big and filled with fear. Their bodies were thin, almost too weak to move. They looked like children, alien children. Arif's hand started to shake. He had heard stories about aliens, but he had never seen one before. For a second, fear told him to run away. His mind screamed that this was dangerous. But then one of the children tried to move forward. It was so weak that it almost fell. Its eyes looked at Arif, not with anger, but with hunger. Pure, painful hunger. Arif's fear slowly disappeared. In its place came something else, something warm and human. He looked at the bread in his hand. It was all he had. If he gave it away, he would sleep hungry again. The children did not move closer. They were too scared. But their eyes never left the bread. Arif closed his eyes for a moment. His stomach hurt, and his body was tired, but he could not ignore what he was seeing slowly. He stepped forward and sat down near them. The children moved back slightly, afraid. Of him, Arif did not speak. He simply broke the bread into small pieces. His hands were gentle as he placed the pieces on the ground. Then he moved back a little, giving them space. For a moment, nothing happened. The children looked at him, then at the bread. They were unsure. Then one small child crawled forward. Its hands were shaking as it picked up a piece. It looked at Arif one more time. Arif gave a small, soft nod. The child quickly ate the bread. The other 2 followed, eating fast like they had not eaten in days. Their small bodies trembled as they tried to fill their hunger. Arif watched them quietly. His heart felt heavy, but also strangely peaceful. He had nothing left now. No food, no money, no strength. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had done something right. The children slowly calmed down after eating. They stayed close together, still scared but less weak. One of them looked at Arif again. This time, there was something new in its eyes. Not just fear, trust. The cold wind blew again. But Arif did not feel it as much now. He looked at the small, alien children, sitting alone in a world that did not care about them. And without saying anything, he made a quiet decision in his heart. He would come back tomorrow. He would not leave them alone. But far above the dark sky, hidden beyond the clouds, something moved silently, something powerful, something that was searching. And it was getting closer. Arif did not know it yet. But this small act of kindness would change everything. The next morning, Arif woke up with an empty stomach and a heavy body. The cold night had made his small room even more uncomfortable. For a few seconds, he lay still, staring at the broken ceiling. Then he remembered the children. He quickly sat up, his heart beating faster. He was not sure why, but he felt worried about them. Were they still there, or had they disappeared like a dream? Arif stood up and looked around his room. There was almost nothing left. A small bottle of water, a torn blanket, and a few coins in the corner. That was all he had. He picked up the coins and counted them slowly. It was not much, but maybe enough to buy a little bread. He took a deep breath and stepped outside. The morning sun was weak, and the streets were already busy. People walked past him without looking. Lost in their own lives, Arif kept his head down and walked toward a small food stall. He bought the cheapest bread he could find. It was smaller than yesterday's, but it was all he could afford. For a moment, he thought about eating a small piece. His hunger was strong, but then the image of those small, weak faces came back to his mind. He closed his hand tightly around the bread and turned away. Arif walked quickly back to the empty street from last night. His steps became faster with each second. When he reached the trash bins, he stopped for a moment. Everything was quiet. His heart sank. Maybe they are gone, he thought. But then he heard it again. A soft movement, a small sound. He moved closer, and there they were. The same 3 alien children, still hiding behind the bins. They looked even weaker than before. Their bodies were shaking, and their glowing skin looked dim. But when they saw Arif, something changed. They did not hide this time. Instead, they slowly moved closer. Arif felt a strange warmth in his chest. They remembered him. He sat down again, just like last night. Without saying a word, he broke the bread into small pieces. The children watched him carefully. Their big eyes were no longer full of fear. Now they showed something softer, hope. One by one, they came closer and took the bread from his hand. This time, they did not hesitate. They trusted him. Arif gave a small smile. It was a rare thing for him. As they ate, he noticed something new. They made soft sounds to each other, like they were speaking, but he could not understand their language. One of the smaller children looked at him and made a quiet sound, almost like a question. Arif gently placed his hand on his chest. "Arif," he said softly. The child watched him, then pointed at itself. It made a soft glowing sound, something like Lee. Arif nodded slowly, trying to understand. "Lee," he repeated. The child's eyes lit up slightly. The other 2 children also made their own sounds. Arif did not understand the words, but he understood the feeling. They were trying to connect with him. Time passed quietly for the first time. The cold street did not feel so empty, but not everyone saw it the same way. A man walking by stopped and looked at them with confusion. "What are those things?" he said with a frown. Another person slowed down and stared. Some people laughed. Others looked uncomfortable. Arif noticed the attention and felt uneasy. He did not want anyone to hurt them. He stood up quickly and looked around. Then he pointed toward a quieter alley nearby. The children watched him carefully. For a second, they were unsure. Then Lee slowly stood up and followed him. The others followed too. They trusted him enough to leave their hiding place. Arif led them to a small hidden corner between old buildings. It was safer, quieter, and away from people. The children sat down close to him, their small bodies no longer shaking as much. Arif looked at them and felt something he had not felt in a long time: responsibility. He knew this was not just one moment anymore. They needed help, real help. But as he sat there, thinking about what to do next, on the other side of the city, inside a dark vehicle, a group of men looked at a glowing screen. Strange signals were appearing, not human. One of them spoke in a serious voice. "We found them." The screen zoomed in slowly, getting closer to Arif's area, back in the alley. The children stayed close to Arif, feeling safe for the first time. But danger was already moving toward them, and it was getting closer with every second. The alley was quiet, but Arif could feel something was wrong. The air felt heavy, like a storm was coming. Watching the entrance carefully, Lee and the others stayed near him. There, a loud sound broke the silence. A vehicle passed at the end of the street, slow and unusual. It was not like the normal cars in the area. Arif's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward slightly, trying to see without being seen. "Feel right." Lee suddenly made a soft, worried sound. Its glowing skin flickered faintly. The other 2 children looked at each other. Their fear returning, Arif noticed this change. "You feel it too," he whispered, even though they could not understand his words. The children pressed closer to him. Their trust was clear now. But so was their fear. Arif took a deep breath. He knew one thing for sure. They were not safe here anymore. He stood up slowly and looked around. The alley was hidden, but not enough. Too many people passed nearby. Too many eyes could notice them. He turned back to the children and gestured gently. "Come," he said softly. They did not hesitate this time. Lee stood up first, followed by the others. They stayed close behind him as he led them through narrow paths and broken streets. Every shadow felt like danger. Every sound made him alert. After some time, they reached his small house. It was old and broken, but it was the only place he had. He opened the door slowly and looked inside. Nothing had changed. Still empty, still poor. But now it had to become a safe place. Arif stepped inside and signaled the children to follow. They entered slowly. The children moved closer together, unsure of this new place. Arif closed the door quietly and leaned against it. For a moment, he just breathed, trying to calm himself. "You are safe here," he said softly, even though they did not understand. Lee looked at him and slowly sat down. The others followed. Staying close to each other, time passed slowly. The silence inside the room felt different, not empty, but tense. Arif sat down near them, thinking. He had no food left, no money, and now 3 lives depended on him. His stomach hurt from hunger, but he ignored it. He looked at the children, their weak bodies, their tired eyes. One of them suddenly fell to the side. "Hey," he said softly, shaking his head in worry. The child's glow became weaker, almost fading. Lee made a panicked sound and moved closer to its friend. The other child also looked scared. Arif did not understand their language, but he understood what was happening. The child was getting worse. Arif stood up quickly, his mind racing. "They need food. Maybe medicine," he whispered, but he had nothing left. He looked around his empty room. There was nothing he could use, nothing he could give. For a second, he felt helpless. Then his face became serious. "I will fix this," he said quietly. He turned to the children and made a simple gesture. He pointed to the floor, telling them to stay. Lee looked at him with fear. It did not want him to leave. Arif knelt down and gently placed his hand near Lee, a silent promise. "I will come back," he said softly. Then he stood up and walked toward the door. Outside, the city was still busy. They held small devices that glowed with strange signals. One of them looked at the screen and pointed forward. "The signal is stronger here," he said. They began to move through the streets, slowly getting closer. Back inside the house, Lee sat near its weak friend, its glowing skin flickering with worry. The children looked toward the door, waiting, hoping, but they did not know. Was running out. Arif stepped out into the street with fast and heavy steps. His mind was full of worry, and his heart would not slow down. He kept thinking about the weak child lying on the floor, the fading glow, the slow breathing. He knew he did not have much time. The city felt louder than before. People moved around him, busy with their own lives. No one noticed the fear on his face. No one cared where he was going. Arif reached into his pocket and touched the few coins he had left. It was almost nothing, but he had to try. He walked quickly to a small medical shop at the corner of a crowded street. The bright lights hurt his eyes after the dark alley. He stepped inside and looked around, nervous and unsure. Did not even know what medicine to ask for. "They are sick," he said slowly, "very weak. Not eating. Breathing is slow." The man frowned, confused by his words. "Who is sick?" he asked. Arif looked down for a moment, then answered carefully, "Children." The man sighed and picked up a small bottle and some basic tablets. "This is all I can give without details," he said. "It will help a little." Arif looked at the items, then at his coins. "It was not enough, please," Arif said softly. "This is all I have." The man looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "This is business, not charity. Take something cheaper," the man added, pointing to a smaller bottle. Arif nodded slowly and pushed his coins forward. He took the small bottle with shaking hands. It was not enough, but it was something. As he turned to leave, he noticed a small piece of bread on a nearby stall. His stomach hurt again, reminding him that he had not eaten. For a second, he stopped. He could buy it. He needed it. But then the image of the children came back. The weak child on the floor. The scared eyes of Lee. Arif looked away and walked out without buying anything for himself. The sky had started to grow darker. Arif walked faster now, almost running. Every second felt important. But as he turned into a narrow street near his house, he suddenly stopped. Two men stood at the corner, wearing dark clothes, holding strange devices in their hands. Arif's heart. Arif quickly turned his face away and kept walking, trying to stay calm. His hands tightened around the small medicine bottle. "Hey," one of the men called out. Arif froze for a second, then slowly turned back. "Yes," he said, trying to sound normal. "Did you see anything unusual around here?" the man asked. "Anything strange?" Arif forced himself to shake his head. "No. Nothing." The man studied his face for a moment, then looked at the device again. "Signal is very close," the second man whispered. Arif felt fear rise inside him like fire, but he kept his face calm. "I have to go," he said quietly. "My family is waiting." The first man stepped aside slowly, still watching him. "Go," he said. Arif did not wait another second. He walked past them, his heart beating louder with every step. As soon as he turned the corner, he started running back inside the small house. Lee sat beside the weak child. Its glow was now very faint, almost gone. The other child stayed close, making soft, worried sounds. The door suddenly opened. Arif rushed inside, breathing heavily. Lee looked up quickly, its eyes filled with hope. "I'm here," Arif said softly. He moved quickly to the weak child and opened the small bottle. His hands were not steady, but he tried his best. He gently helped the child drink a few drops, then waited, watching closely. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was silent. Then slowly, very slowly, the child's breathing became a little stronger. Its faint glow returned, just a little. Lee made a soft sound, like relief. Arif let out a deep breath he did not know he was holding. But the relief did not last long. From outside, a faint sound echoed, footsteps, slow, careful. Getting closer, Arif's eyes moved toward the door. His face became serious again. "They found US," he whispered. The children moved closer together, fear returning instantly. The small house, once a safe place, was no longer hidden, and this time, there was nowhere left to run. Slow, careful, and controlled, not the random steps of normal people. These were hunters. Arif stood still in the center of the room, his breathing quiet but fast, his eyes locked on the door. Every small sound felt like a warning. Behind him, Lee and the other children moved closer together, their small bodies shaking again. The weak child was still lying on the floor. Arif knew one thing clearly. If those men entered this house, everything would be over. He quickly looked around the room. No weapons, no place to escape, no safe hiding spot. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Silence, a heavy silence that made his chest tight. Then a low voice came from outside. "The signal is here," another voice answered. "No." Mistake this time. Arif closed his eyes for 1 second. Thinking fast, he had no power, no strength, no plan, only one thing, his will to protect them. He turned quickly to the children and raised his hand gently, signaling them to stay quiet. They understood. They did not make a sound. Arif walked slowly toward the door, each step heavy. His hand reached for the handle, but he stopped. Fear tried to hold him back, but he pushed it away. If he showed fear, they would lose everything. The door suddenly shook with a loud knock. "Open the door," a strong voice ordered. Arif took a deep breath and opened it slowly. 2 men stood outside, their faces serious, their eyes sharp. Behind them, a dark vehicle waited silently. Device in one man's hand was glowing brighter now, beeping softly. The man looked directly at Arif. "I don't know what you are talking about," he replied quietly. The second man stepped forward. "You live alone," the man said, watching him closely. Arif nodded. "Yes." The device beeped louder. The first man frowned. "Move aside," he said. Arif did not move. "I said move," the man repeated, his voice colder now. Arif shook his head slowly. "No." The men exchanged a quick look. They were not expecting resistance. "Do not make this difficult," the second man said. "We are authorized to search." Arif's hands clenched slightly. "This is my home," he said. "You can't just enter." The first man's eyes hardened. "We can." He stepped forward, trying to push past Arif. But Arif did something unexpected. He pushed back, not with strength, but with courage. "Leave," Arif said firmly. For a brief second, the men paused, surprised, inside the house. Lee watched everything. Its glowing skin flickered faster. It could feel the danger. It could feel Arif protecting them. The weak child slowly opened. Its eyes, still tired, but aware, outside the tension broke. The second man raised his hand, ready to force his way in, but suddenly, confused. "What is this?" one of them said. The signal was changing, growing stronger. But not from inside the house, from above. They slowly looked up at the sky. Arif followed their gaze. The clouds above the city began to move, not naturally, but as if something huge was pushing through them. A low, deep sound filled the air. Like a giant machine waking up, people in the street started to stop and look up, fear and confusion. Then, slowly, a huge shape revealed itself. A gigantic alien ship, its surface glowing with soft blue and silver light, far beyond anything human had ever seen. The men stepped back, their confidence gone. This is not possible," one of them whispered. Arif stood frozen, his heart racing. Inside the house, Lee looked up, its eyes wide. The glow of its body became stronger, not with fear this time, but with something else, recognition. The ship above them moved slowly, silently, like it was searching, like it had finally found what it was looking for. The entire city stood still, watching the sky. But for Arif and the children, this was not the end. This was only the beginning of something much bigger. And now, there was no turning back. The sky above the city was no longer normal. The massive alien ship hovered silently, covering the light of the sun. Its surface moved like living metal, glowing with soft blue patterns. People in the streets stood frozen, some pointing, some running in fear. Arif stood at the doorway of his small house, unable to look away. His heart was racing, his mind full of questions. "Is this their home?" he whispered softly, behind him. Lee and the other children slowly stood up, their weak bodies now glowing brighter than before. The faint light around them pulsed gently, like a signal. Lee stepped forward, its eyes fixed on the sky. There was no fear now, only recognition. Outside, the two men who had come to search the house were no longer focused on Arif. Their attention was locked on the ship above. Their devices were making loud, uncontrollable sounds. "This is far beyond our level," one of them said nervously. "We need to report this now." But before they could move, a beam of light shot down from the ship. It was soft but powerful, like a column of energy touching the ground. The air around it felt strange, almost alive. Arif stepped back slightly, his instincts telling him to be careful. The beam moved, slowly, scanning the area, passing over buildings, streets, and people. Then it stopped, right in front of Arif's house. The light grew brighter, inside the house. Lee made a soft sound and stepped toward the door. Arif quickly turned. "No," he said gently. "It's dangerous." But Lee looked at him and shook its head slowly. Its eyes were calm. For the first time it was not afraid. It took another step forward, then another. The other children followed. Arif watched them, his chest tight. He did not want to let them go. But something deep inside him told him this moment was important. They stepped out into the light. The beam surrounded them softly, their glowing bodies shining even brighter now. The weak child, who could barely move before, was now standing, its strength slowly returning. Arif stepped closer, unable to stay back. "Stay with me," he said quietly, even though he knew they might not. The light suddenly changed, forming shapes inside it. 3 tall figures appeared. They were aliens much taller than the children, their bodies strong and shining, their eyes calm but powerful. Their presence filled the air with quiet authority. The 2 men who were searching earlier stepped back in fear. They had no control anymore. One of the tall aliens looked at the children, then at Arif. Its eyes studied him carefully, as if reading everything about him. Arif felt a strange pressure in his mind. Not pain, but something deep and searching. Memories flashed for a moment. The bread, the alley, the cold nights, the small acts of kindness. The alien lowered its head slightly. It understood. A soft sound came from it. Not words, but something deeper. Yet somehow, Arif could feel the meaning. "You protected them." Arif stood still, unsure how to respond. "I just helped," he said quietly. The children moved closer to the tall aliens, but they did not leave Arif's side completely. Lee looked back at him, its eyes full of emotion. The second tall alien stepped forward. It raised its hand slowly. A soft light spread across the ground. The weak child's body became fully stable. Its glow returned to normal, strong and healthy. Arif watched in silent shock. They healed it so easily. The first alien looked at him again. "In your world," the feeling came again. Others ignored them. Arif looked down for a moment. "Yes," he said softly. The alien's eyes softened slightly. "But you did not." The air around them became calm, almost peaceful. The fear from before slowly disappeared. Even the 2 men who had come to capture the children stood silently now, unable to act, unable to speak. The large ship above made a low sound, like it was preparing for something. The tall alien stepped closer to Arif. "Your actions changed their fate." The feeling came again. Arif looked at the children. They were safe now, no longer hungry, no longer afraid. But something inside him felt heavy. This meant they would leave. Lee slowly walked toward him. It reached out its small hand and touched his arm. A quiet goodbye. Arif forced a small smile. "You're safe now," he said softly. The light around them began to grow stronger again. The tall aliens turned slightly, preparing to return. But before they left, the first alien paused. It looked at Arif one last time, and something changed in the air. Something important. Something that would not only affect him, but his entire future. Because this was not just a goodbye. It was the beginning of a reward, one that no one in this world would expect. The light around the aliens grew brighter, filling the street with a soft glow. People watched from a distance, too afraid to come closer. The massive ship above remained silent, like it was waiting for something important to finish. Arif stood still, his eyes on the tall alien in front of him. He did not know what would happen next, but he could feel that this moment would change everything. The alien raised its hand slowly. A calm energy spread through the air. It felt warm, peaceful, and powerful at the same time. Then the same deep feeling entered Arif's mind again. "You showed kindness when your world showed none." Arif swallowed quietly, unsure how to respond. "I just did what I could," he said in a low voice. The alien studied him for a moment, as if trying to understand something deeper about him. "For us," the feeling continued, "this is not small." Behind them, Lee and the other children stood safely, their bodies now full of energy, their glow bright and steady. No sign of weakness remained. Lee looked at Arif again, its eyes filled with something new, gratitude. Arif gave a small nod, trying to stay strong. Even though his chest felt heavy, he knew they would leave now. The alien stepped closer to him. "You gave when you had nothing." The words were not spoken, but Arif understood clearly. This will not be forgotten. Suddenly, the air around Arif began to change. A soft light surrounded his body. It did not hurt. It felt warm, like standing in sunlight after a long cold night. Arif looked down at his hands. The small cuts and rough skin began to heal. The pain in his body slowly disappeared. His tired eyes became clear again. His weak body felt stronger. Arif looked up in shock. "What is this?" he whispered. "A gift." The alien replied through feeling, not wealth, but balance. The light faded slowly. But Arif could feel the difference. He was no longer the same weak, tired man. The second alien stepped forward and raised its hand toward the sky. From the large ship above, smaller lights began to fall gently across the city. They spread like soft rain, touching buildings, streets, and people. Where the light touched, things began to change. Broken walls repaired slowly. Dark areas became brighter. Even the air felt cleaner. People looked around in shock. They did not understand what was happening. Arif watched everything, unable to believe his eyes. "You asked for others," the first alien said. "Not for yourself." Arif remembered his quiet wish, that no one should go hungry. The alien continued. "This world will remember kindness." Tears filled Arif's eyes. He did not expect this. He did not ask for something this big. Behind him, Lee stepped closer one last time. It gently held his hand. A silent goodbye. Arif knelt down slightly, his voice soft. "Be safe." Lee made a quiet sound, one that felt like a promise. Then the children stepped back toward the tall aliens. The light around them grew stronger again, lifting them slowly off the ground. Arif watched as they began to rise toward the sky. He did not try to stop them. He knew this was where they belonged. The two men who had come to capture them stood far behind now, silent, powerless, and full of shock. The ship above opened slightly, a glowing path welcoming them back. Lee looked down one last time, its small glowing hand raised toward Arif. Then they were gone. The light closed. The ship slowly moved back into the clouds, and within seconds, it disappeared completely. The sky returned to normal, but the world below had changed. Arif stood alone in the street, but he did not feel alone anymore. Around him, people were talking, confused, amazed, but Arif simply looked at his hands, then at the sky. A small smile appeared on his face. He was still a simple human, but now his life had meaning beyond survival. Days later, the city slowly became better. Food became easier to find. People began to help each other more. No one could explain it clearly, but something had changed in their hearts. Arif continued his simple life, but now he helped others whenever he could, not because of the reward, but because it was right, and somewhere far beyond the stars. A group of alien children remembered one human, the one who fed them when no one else did, the one who proved that even in a cold world, kindness is the greatest power.